All right, everybody. Well, welcome all of you to our Graduate Diversity Admissions Fair. We are the Psychology PhD program, and we're so excited that you're here with us today. To start us off, my name is Kai Santiago. I go by he, they, and she pronouns. I am from the Bay Area, to go with the theme of the chat, and I am a Graduate Student Services Advisor. Let me go ahead and just onto this next slide for you all. Joined with me are a few of my colleagues. I do want to shout out Fonda Yoshimoto Reed. Fonda, if you want to introduce yourself, feel free to do so.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fonda Yoshimoto Reed. I share her pronouns, and I'm a graduate student affairs officer along with Kai here, and I'm zooming in from Berkeley.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then quickly, I do want to introduce our chair, Dr. Aislam Ayduk, who is just joining us for a few minutes. So Oz, if you just want to say a quick hello, feel free to do so.
Hi, everybody. This is Oz Ayduk. I am the chair of the department. I'm also a faculty member in our social and personality psych area. And I welcome you all to take a peek into our PhD program. And nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Oz. I also want to introduce our Director of Student Services, Harumi Quinones, who is going to be in the Q&A. Harumi, if you want to quickly say hello, feel free.
Hi all, Harumi Quinones, Austria. She, her pronouns, zooming in from Berkeley. And I'm going to shut off my camera and going to be in the background when we move to Q&A. We'll ask that you type your questions in the Q&A and not the chat so that we can track them from there and make sure that we can answer anything that comes up. Welcome all. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Harumi. So before I pass it off to our head graduate advisor, I do want to give you all an agenda of what's happening today. So obviously we're introducing ourselves. We're going to talk a little bit about the research that goes on in the psychology department here at UC Berkeley through our PhD program, talking about our students and the structure of the PhD that will be led by Lance Kriegfield. Then we're going to have our equity advisor, Erin Fisher, go through the holistic application review. Then we're going to have three of our students, Alejandro, Alexandra, and Sebastian. We're going to have a Q&A with them. And then Fonda is going to go through some application logistics. I'll go through some of the graduate student resources we have at UC Berkeley, and we'll end with a quick survey. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to Lance.
Thanks, Kai. I didn't know you'd have a picture of me, but thanks. So welcome, everybody. Great to see everyone. I'm Lance Kriegsfeld. I'm the vice chair and head graduate advisor, and I'll just give you a little overview of the program and the areas and some of our research and a few other tidbits. So within the department, we have 6 areas. We have a cognition area, which is concerned about computational approaches to understanding cognitive processes, so a lot of math, statistics, and coding. We have cognitive neuroscience, which typically uses brain imaging approaches to understand cognition and behavior. The area I'm in is behavioral and systems neuroscience, where we're interested in understanding the physiological circuits and mechanisms of neural communication that underlie behavior. We have developmental, which is interested in understanding how experience and developmental events shape us into our adult selves. We have social personality, which is interested in understanding relationships and group dynamics and interpersonal interactions, and clinical science, which is interested in research on mental health and treatment approaches to mental health. As you probably know, we have a very vibrant and productive research community with world-renowned faculty members, all engaging in cutting-edge research in their respective fields. And I'm just going to highlight a few for you. In my area, we have Linda Wilbrecht, who studies how experiences during development shape the brain to our adult form and influence how we learn and make decisions and respond to rewards as adults. She studies how things like early life adversity, such as food insecurity or stressors as you're growing up, impact typical development and lead to enhanced risk of substance abuse and addiction, for example. We have Rudy Mendoza-Denton, who's in the social personality area and studies social cognition and relationships, such as friendships, romantic relationships, and group relationships. He's very interested in how we can foster relationships and group cohesiveness across racial and cultural boundaries. And his lab uses behavioral and physiological approaches to study these questions. The last person I want to highlight is research by Kevin Weiner, who's in our cognitive neuroscience area, and uses imaging, EEG approaches, and postmortem tissue analysis of human brain, imaging reconstruction approaches to look at what's really interestingly a neglected area of the brain. Most people study sort of the meat of the brain and brain loci and how they're involved in regulating cognition and behavior. But he focuses on the folds of the brain, these sulci and gyri that have been neglected over the years in terms of thinking about their functional significance. And historically, we just thought of this as, how do you fit more brain in a skull? But he's shown that you can identify these specific sulci and gyri and their functional significance for things like visual processing and face recognition. So what kind of students do well in the program, and what should you think about? Being highly organized and is an important characteristic. Highly motivated and self-disciplined. The way I think about graduate school is you're really working for yourself and pushing ahead your own research agenda under the direction of a mentor. That self-discipline and moving forward is very important. Creativity for deciding on your research questions, ability to process and synthesize information. You're going to be taking in a lot of information in your classes, but also through self-studying, through reading research papers and taking in the field that way. Sorry, there's some talking. I don't know if is somebody asking a question or is it just okay. Hardworking because it's important to work hard on your research questions to be successful. A little bit about the program and how it proceeds. In years 1 and 2, you're focused on coursework because you try to complete a good chunk, if not all, of your coursework within the first 2 years. Everyone's trajectory differs slightly, depending on maybe the area you're in or, your own focus as you proceed through this. But generally, within the first 2 years, you're taking courses such as statistics. You take 2 semesters of statistics. There's an intro to professional psychology course that you take that involves ethical issues and research in psychology. And you're also introduced to the faculty, which is a lot of fun to hear faculty stories about how they got into the field and what research they work on. And you also take a second semester of professional development, typically in your second year, in order to be a graduate student instructor where you're teaching. You take a teaching course where you learn about teaching best practices and strategies to maximize learning in the undergraduate students. You attend colloquia in your area, so you learn about research in the field outside of Berkeley that's going on, and it also helps you learn how to give a professional seminar. You teach at Berkeley, you teach as a graduate student instructor or a teaching assistant at least 2 semesters during your time here. We also have seminars that are where you delve deeper into the literature and discuss the literature and lead discussions on the literature. These are you take 3 to 4 depending on your area, and then 2 to 3 pro seminars, which are a little more in depth and more involved in research and getting down into the nitty gritty of a particular field. And then at the end of your second year, you present a poster on your research. So it may seem a bit overwhelming, but you're also conducting research at this time, and you'll present your research at the end of the second year. In years 3 and 4, you typically will take a qualifying exam where it depends a little on the area, but typically you'll have a written component to the qualifying exam, and you form a committee of faculty members and then have an oral component to the qualifying exam. You also, once you complete your coursework and your qualifying exam, you could what's called advance to candidacy, where now your focus is much more on research, and then you are completing your dissertation work, working towards writing papers, and that'll comprise your dissertation. And then, the remainder is really focusing on your research and finishing off your dissertation under direct mentorship of your committee and your primary mentor. And then typically by year 5, although everyone's trajectory differs slightly, some people may finish earlier, some slightly later. And then you submit your dissertation, you get your PhD, and then you live happily ever after, as we all are living now. As Kai put up here, in clinical science, it's slightly different, where you have an internship because you're also being trained as a therapist at the same time that you're being trained as a researcher, and many folks go on to careers practicing both. So I think that is my spiel. If you have questions, you could put them in the chat, and I'm sure they'll get answered throughout the day. And you can learn from the students later, which I think is great, that are in the program and get a feel for what it's like to be a student in the program.
Thank you so much, Lance. We appreciate you. And sorry I put the slide a little late, but you did a wonderful job at explaining the whole PhD timeline. So we appreciate you, Lance. Now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Erin Fisher, who is our equity advisor, that's going to talk about the holistic application review.
Hey, folks. I'm Erin. I'm a professor in clinical science, and I'm zooming in from Petaluma up in Sonoma County. I see one, so I think there was some background noise. Betsy, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you could mute your microphone. Thank you. Awesome. There we go. Okay. So I want to talk about how we've been reviewing applications for the past several years. I'd have to go thinking about exactly how long we've been doing this, but certainly the last 3 or 4 years. And you hear this term a lot these days, holistic review, and I want to operationalize it for you and tell you exactly what we do. And exactly what we do is we read the whole application from front to back, right? In the past, I think many people throughout academia have been guilty of kind of scanning for GRE scores, scanning for GPA, scanning for prestigious universities, or if not prestigious, kind of labs and settings and departments where you tend to know, oh, well, they do good work there. I know people there. And, it's anything that kind of makes it a shorter, more efficient process. Because at places like Berkeley, at least in clinical science, some of us sometimes will get 100+ applications for one spot in our lab. And I think that there's a natural human tendency to want to try to cut down the amount of time you're putting into reviewing those. But we're really trying to programmatically push back against that. So as the equity advisor, I have conversations with each area each year, touch base with them about this process. We talk about using this word again, operationalizing what our criteria are and trying to put that on the internet, trying to put that on the website so you can know exactly what people are looking for and so that it's less of a mystery for you. And then as we review your applications, right, so we are trying to gain a deeper, better, wider, broader understanding of who you are and what you're bringing to grad school beyond just, you got a really great GPA and you're coming from a great institution and things like this. Yeah, okay, so there's a few points to make. I think one is, we have two essays, and the first one is more about, so we have and excuse me if I'm getting the names wrong. So one's the personal statement, and one's statement of purpose. Kai, you can help me out here, but there's two of them, and one of them is tell us about who you are as a researcher and a thinker and a scientist and an aspiring scientist. And in that one, that's what you really want to focus on. What have you done? What do you know? What are your skills? What are you excited about? What do you like thinking about? Things are a little different from area to area. For instance, in social personality, you apply to the area, and clinical, you more apply to a specific faculty member, but you still want to do a good job of saying, hey, I know the work of the person or people that I'm applying to. I can speak knowledgeably. I can do more than just regurgitate a couple lines from that person's website. You want to be careful with that. For instance, I haven't updated my website in 4 years, so it's kind of always a tell when someone just pulls line off of the website. So statement of purpose and personal history, thank you. Those are the actual names of so the statement of purpose is the one where this is about who you are as a thinker and a scientist and an aspiring psychological scientist. Yeah, so, maybe a little bit of personal history if it's relevant in your scientific narrative. But your personal history goes in that second statement, right? The personal history goes in your personal history statement. And here is where we absolutely want to know all about you. And, with the Supreme Court ruling recently and the fact that California hasn't had, the laws in California haven't allowed us to make any kind of decisions based on underrepresented status or cultural background or anything like that. But what the Supreme Court did make clear is you are absolutely allowed to talk about the experiences you've had as a function of your culture, as a function of where you grew up, the types of people you grew up around. These are all fair game to talk about in depth in your personal statement, and we can bring that into account. Like what we can't do and haven't done for years is have some sort of metric of, well, we need 5 of this type of person and 5. We can't do that. We don't do that. But we absolutely are deeply invested in having a broad representation of people in our program, and where the representation comes from the personal lived experience. And those are the things that you should absolutely talk about in your personal statement, because that's the place you can put it. We don't have, bins to sort you into based on, for instance, culture, race, etc. But you can self-identify as a function of your lived experience and what that has meant for you as a person, how it has impacted you, obstacles that might have been a part of your journey, how you overcame those obstacles. All of that is rich and important, and it's stuff that we're interested in hearing about. I'm probably going on a little long, but I think something that's really important to mention, to the degree that it's possible. I understand that sometimes you ask a letter writer to write a letter, and that's kind of it, and they're going to write what they're going to write, and you have very little control over that. But to the degree that it's possible, a really nice, considering we do holistic review and someone's going to sit down and read your whole application from the first word to the last word, seeing really nice convergence between what you say in your statement of purpose and your personal history and what your letter writers say about you really helps kind of make your application more memorable, makes you kind of jump off the page as a more fully fleshed, individual. It's just a little extra on top of all the other things you've done to prepare and all the skills you've built, and et cetera. When that application is kind of really consistent and convergent across your personal statements, your CV as well, and those letters of recommendation, to give us a really clear idea of who you are and what you're all about and what you want to do. And Yeah, I'm a rambler, so I could just keep rambling, but I'll maybe cut myself off there, Kai.
Erin, thank you so, so much. That was all so insightful. And just as a reminder, folks, we're going to have this recording on the psychology admissions website within the next few weeks. I'm going to try to get it up as soon as possible for you all, because these little nuggets of information from our faculty, from Lance, from Erin, these are all so important for you all as you navigate this application process. And so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and have our student speakers now be a part of it. I know you all as prospective students want to hear from our current graduate students. So we're actually going to spotlight Alexandra first. And Adolfo, if you could help me actually spotlight Alexandra, that would be amazing. Alexandra, we're gonna have you, well, actually, I see you, so I can do it myself. Wonderful. Alexandra, if you could do a quick little introduction, kind of like how we did with our chat intro, your name, your pronouns, if you feel comfortable, and where you're zooming in from, along with where you are in your PhD journey.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Serna Godoy. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a first-year student in the Behavioral and Systems Neuroscience area.
Amazing. Thank you, Alexandra. So first question is, when did you know you wanted to pursue a PhD in psychology?
Oh, I could talk about this like for hours, but honestly, I didn't know what a PhD was when I started doing research. So during undergrad, I was part of a psychology lab, and I just fell in love with behavioral neuroscience, and I just fell in love with research. I knew that I wanted to do that for my whole life. So I knew that in the future I wanted to pursue a PhD. So during the last cycle, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to apply because I didn't know if I was ready enough. But honestly, I don't think anyone feels like 100% ready to apply. So I had a great mentor, and he just encouraged me to apply just to see what will happen. And what happened is that now I'm here. So I knew that I wanted to apply to psychology programs because I really passionate about psychology as a whole. The diversity of just research interests and areas really keep me motivated and really curious about science in general.
That's amazing. And Alexandra, I want to echo what so many of your peers, faculty, and staff think about you. We're so happy that you're here at UC Berkeley in our department. We'll hear from you in a little bit, but now I'm going to actually bring onto the stage Sebastian Frank Love. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you. And Sebastian, same question. Name, pronouns, where are you calling in from? And give us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, nice to meet everybody. I'm Sebastian Frank Love. I'm calling in from actually Berkeley campus, BWW, for those of you who may not know. Um, yeah, working in the clinical area, and I feel like I'm missing one. What was the last one?
Um, Actually, that was
Was
it.
that
That
everything?
was
I might have
perfect.
got it. Look at me.
Thanks,
All right,
Sebastian.
there we go.
So now the big question for
Mm.
you is why did you apply to and eventually accept the offer to come to UC Berkeley Psychology Department?
Yeah, I feel like it was a little bit easier to figure out applying. I was in a very fortunate position to see my current mentor, Keaton Joyner, actually give a talk at the institution I was completing my fellowship at. And I think being able to see not just how rigorous of a science and the kind of the standard is at Berkeley through their work and maybe how your interests may align directly, but also I got the opportunity to really connect with how translational his work could be and where I might be able to intersect and improve it. So that's when I knew I was going to apply. And it doesn't hurt that my family is in Los Angeles and I was in Connecticut at the time. So I was like, okay, this kind of works really well. And I decided to accept my offer once I came for my recruitment visit. And I got to interact with the faculty, and interact directly with Keenan, some of the students, and I felt so welcome, so at home, and that this was a community that not only wanted me, but felt like I could really contribute to various forms of science that they were doing there. And yeah, it's just a beautiful place to be in, both aesthetically, but also figuratively as well. So at some point it became a no-brainer, and I was only considering between two places. So yeah, it ended up working out.
Well, we're lucky that we were one of the two that you considered, Sebastian. So thank you so much. We're now going to shift over to our third panelist, Alejandro, who I'll have introduce himself in seconds.
Hi.
Go ahead, Alejandro.
Hi, Kai. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Yes, thank you so much, Kai. My name is Alejandro Campero Liart. I use he, him, and L pronouns. I am a fourth-year PhD candidate in the social personality psychology area, and I am calling from Berkeley Expresso, which if you ever get the chance to come around Berkeley, you'll find that there's in Berkeley Way West, where the psychology department is hosted. You'll find that there's a nice little coffee shop that always plays the exact same music every day, but for some reason it never gets old. That's my take on it, and they have some great coffee. But yeah, so that's me. I don't know if I need to say anything else.
Well, it says here your year and your research area, which is fantastic. And I think we can just jump straight into the question. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, Alejandro, what are well, actually, before I say anything else, we guarantee 5 years of funding opportunities to our students through fellowships, through graduate student research positions, through teaching positions, which we've touched on a little bit today. So what are some ways that you funded your program, Alejandro, as a fourth year?
Yes, thank you, Kai. Great question. And yeah, so in my experience, I've been fortunate enough to get to have transitioned into Berkeley, securing a university-wide fellowship called the Chancellor's Fellowship. And on that note, I just wanted to plug in this website that Berkeley offers, and I'll put it in the chat, where you can find a number of fellowships and grants that the university offers. And one of the nice things about the Chancellor's Fellowship, and I believe also the Costa Robles Fellowship, is that it is a fellowship that the department kind of sends on your behalf to see if you'd be willing to considered. So I was fortunate enough to secure that fellowship coming into the psych program here at Berkeley. And the Chancellor's Fellowships offers, it's a 4-year fellowship, and it offers 2 years of funding, irrespective of teaching and or research duties. So that's that's been the primary way in which I have been able to fund my studies from first to second year. In parallel, I had a talk with my advisors prior to coming to Berkeley, because one of the stipulations of the Chancellor's Fellowship is that you can also hold either a GSI, a teaching, and or a research position for 1 semester per year. And so I saw that as an opportunity to get a little bit more to bolster my finances, given that I could receive funds from the fellowship and also earn wages through my, earn a stipend through my teaching or research position. And that was something that I also did my first semester coming into the department. And there was also talks about kind of like, getting used to the prospect of teaching very early on, which was something that my advisor pushed for, and I totally thanked them for it, because it was very, very nice to be able to see, right, if teaching is right for you. I personally hadn't taught prior to coming to the program. And so it was really nice experience to kind of like navigate early on in my PhD career. I did see a question about whether this fellowship is for U.S. citizens only. It is not. I am living proof. I am not a U.S. citizen nor a permanent resident. I am undocumented, currently under DACA. And so this is a fellowship that is available for for students across those communities. Later on, I kind of funded my my PhD route through teaching, currently through research positions as well. I can speak a little bit more about the sort of supplemental fellowships that I've been able to get access to. There's a number of fellowships such as the Diversity and Community Fellowship that you can apply to that offers I believe it's 7,000 yearly stipend, which is a nice supplement. And if you're somebody who is community oriented or have particular passions in creating a positive impact in your immediate community, that is something that I totally encourage you to look out for. And other ones as well, such as the Transcendent Beyond Berkeley Fellowship as well, which I'm currently holding. And so there's a number of fellowships that you can get access to, both at the university level, which I mentioned, Chancellor's Costa Robles. I didn't mention too much about a nationwide fellowships such as the National Science Foundation, the NSF Fellowship, and also the Ford Fellowship, which when I got into grad school was still a thing. The pre-doctoral fellowship, now it has been sunsetted, unfortunately, so won't talk too much about that. But that's kind of how I have been able to fund my studies so far. University-wide fellowships, as well as some supplemental fellowships that give me a little bit more wiggle room in terms of my financial stability.
Amazing, Alejandro. Thank you so much. I just want to elevate one of the comments that's in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's definitely an inspiration to several folks. I've told you this myself, Alejandro, so we appreciate you and sharing so many amazing resources for our students. We do have a resource in the chat that Adolfo had posted as well. It links to our psychology funding residency webpage. So feel free to take a look at that for more information about fellowships. But if I could ask Adolfo to now spotlight Alexandra and Sebastian again. We have a few more questions to ask our panelists. And the next question is actually going to be for Alexandra. Oh, they are spotlighted. Okay, well, thank you so much. Our program is very research focused, even in the clinical area. And so, Alexandra, what kind of research experience did you have before you started your program here at UC Berkeley?
Yes, so I thought it was really funny that I got this question because it was actually one of those questions that I didn't like to hear during graduate student panels. Just because I feel like it's inevitable. I don't know how to say it, but to compare yourselves to other people. So just keep that in mind. This is my experience, but I know everyone in the program has different research experiences before coming here. But like I mentioned before, during undergrad, I stayed in a psychology lab for 3 years, and it was such a great experience. I had an amazing PI, and I also had amazing graduate student mentors. So during that time, I was able to learn a lot of great techniques. And also I became really comfortable working in bench work. And I also became really familiarized with working with animals and doing animal behavior stuff. So those things allowed me to become a really independent researcher. So by the time I graduated undergrad last June, I was already working on my own independent project. And just if I can add some things, during those 3 years, I was able to present my research a few times in different conferences, which I feel like it's very important and helped me develop my scientific thinking, but also just outreach. And also, by the time I graduated, my name was in 3 publications where from the time I was helping other grad students in the lab. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alexandra. That is very, again, inspirational. And we thank you for contributing all of your knowledge to the field, even before you got in here, right? So we'll see what happens next. So for our next panelist, Sebastian, our question for you is, what advice would you give to somebody applying to this program right now?
Yeah, this question is tough because I'm not sure what everyone has heard, so I'm gonna try my best to not regurgitate some of the information that you've already gotten from every person that you've asked. Uh, so I think the first thing is I think to make sure that you understand the program you're applying to and the faculty member that you're applying to, if that's necessary for your specific area. Um, I can't stress enough how imperative it is to be able to disseminate why it is you would be a good fit, not just why the program would be a good fit for you. Um, and so I would really take the time to, look into what the program provides for students, what student expectations are throughout the 5 to 6 years that they'll be in there. Um, Also look at the graduate students that the faculty member you'll be applying to, what they look like, kind of what they've done throughout their career, what their research interests are, and if you can get in contact with any of those individuals. I know it can be hard and people are busy, but an email doesn't hurt anyone. So whether they respond to it or not, I think it's worth a shot. Um, I would also say keep in mind that you're also reviewing the program and the faculty member. So ask a lot of questions throughout the process, whether it's just the application process or interview process. You want to make sure that this place is a good fit for you, and that it meets all of your needs. And I think that's forgotten. So hopefully you'll have a lot of people reminding you of that. And yeah, pull up. Like it's a great place to be. And I think you'll get a good sense of how we do things here. So if you can pull up, hopefully we'll be able to show you a good time and you can actually see whether or not this place is meeting your graduate student needs. Yeah, I think that's all I got for now.
And that was perfect, Sebastian. Thank you so much. Heavy emphasis on the pull up. And when we say that, we mean visit the campus. See if being at the physical space is going to be the right fit for you, right? Thinking about weather here in Berkeley, thinking about like actually feeling the presence of I can be here. We do have time really quickly. I do see that Aaron wants to say something. Feel free, Aaron, before we move on to the last question.
Yeah, I just wanted to, hopefully I can just be brief here. I saw a few questions scanning through the Q&A and then just following from Sebastian, you know, and also thinking about the comment you made, even clinical science. Yeah, the clinical science area specifically is not a good landing spot if you want to be a therapist. We do produce therapists, but when you're coming in the door, what we're looking for are people that we hope want to be scientists. Now, that doesn't have to mean academic scientists. You can end up, working for a tech company. You can end up working in a lot of other sectors and in medical sectors, et cetera. But yeah, so like the research experience, I saw my eye caught one question, how early should you start? You should start as early as you can. I mean, if you're on this call right now and you're a senior, you should think about, if you really want to go to Berkeley, you should think about maybe some postgraduate research. If you're a first or a second year, you should get into a lab right now, right? Get into a lab, build skills, build relationships. And then just the coda that I'll add to the end of that, jumping off of Sebastian, all of this sets you up when you're sitting down writing that personal statement. What can you say about who you are as a scientific person, as a thinker? What do you know about the people you're applying to work with? You should know that well. And how compelling can you make the whole case sound? That's a huge part of getting into grad school. So I just wanted to kind of note that.
And we appreciate that, Aaron. Thank you so much. Alejandro, our last question for our panel for today. So, as a fourth year student, thinking back to what you thought you would be studying when you applied to the program, how much of what you're doing today matches your expectations?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I know sometimes we say that about all the questions, but this is really a great question because one of the, at least in my experience, one of the points or aspects of your application and just of your profile as a scientist that you want to emphasize on, right? Kind of echoing Aaron's point is your research interest, right? When you're applying to these spaces to a PhD program, you're very much applying to a large extent to a particular person, right? That has a particular direction or has garnished a particular research profile and level of expertise. And so you definitely want to give due thought into, what is my research interest foundation, right? What sort of vision do I have for a research plan? And so coming into the department, and I'm sorry, there's a firefighter truck, sorry about that. Coming into the department, I felt like I had a strong foundation in terms of the things that I wanted to do based on the things that I had already done. So I had done a lot of work in psychophysiology and emotion, and looking into how the mind and body sort of, interact with one another, connect with one another in order to color our emotional experiences, particularly within social context. But one of the things that I was really interested in delving into, which I hadn't just yet, is in social cognition, and looking into how complex attributions for people's personality, right? Thinking of people as more complex rather than just like monolithic and just fixed, how that could impact our relationships. And so I had this sort of seed that I came here with, and that actually sort of came into fruition very early on with some conversations that I had with one of my main advisors now, Professor Özlem Ayduk, who I think was in the call earlier. And we had a couple of conversations, a couple of meetings where, this sort of budding interest came into fruition and crystallized into something that we have now as a full-fledged research program. All of that to say is that I am very thankful, looking in retrospect, that I was able to form a research foundation, but a malleable top, if that makes sense, right? Have the openness to be able to receive and be receptive to ideas that may, build upon a particular interest that's not yet coagulated, or perhaps, go into an area that you may find yourself liking and gravitating towards once you are here. Does that make sense? And so I would definitely encourage you folks to think about your research interest as having a very, as levels, right? Like, I have a foundation that is with which I am sort of applying for a particular program, and maybe this program, but I am also holding a level of openness and a level of willingness to engage with other types of ideas that, maybe later on you'll realize are really either complementary or supplemental to the stuff that you want to go into. And that's kind of how I found, right? Like to the question at the end of the day, I am still doing work in psychophysiology. I am still doing work in psychophysiology as related to emotion, but I also now do work in the relationship domain, in the social cognition domain, and even in the emotional regulation domain. And those are all research interests and directions that I've gone into, and which have crystallized once here at Berkeley. I feel like it's fair relatively well for me. I'm very happy about it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Alejandro. Definitely something that Alexandra and Sebastian can look forward to as well as they continue their PhD journeys. And we are a little bit ahead of schedule. So if I could ask the three of you, 1 minute each, any last pieces of advice for these prospective students that we have with us today? Let's start with Alexandra.
It's really hard. I feel like, at least for me, in my experience, just coming straight from undergrad was really scary. But just Berkeley, I've been here for 2 months, and Berkeley has been an amazing experience so far. Just the community itself, just it's so rich in science, but also like every single person is so supportive, and everyone will be there to support you like right now and in the future. So if you're thinking about Berkeley, I can say that it's a pretty good choice.
Amazing. Thank you. Sebastian?
Yeah, the only thing I would probably add is don't allow for maybe differences in your background to deter you. And I mean, specifically with research experience, I think mine was a little interesting. Like long time ago, wanted to be a football player, um, and went from there to the clinical route, then transitioned to research, and then decided to do a PhD purely. And so like you can have different things that may not be the traditional path of coming into a program like this, but I think as long as you can speak to how your specific experiences have led to your research questions that you want to answer and how that fits with the program and the faculty members you'll be working with, you'll be fine. It does take a little bit of intentionality when, writing about it, but also like embarking on those things. But just know that, just because you're coming from a different field, you may have a master's degree in something else, you may be coming straight from undergrad. Don't allow that to, I guess, be the thing that stops you from feeling like you'd be competitive and applying to a place like this.
That's amazing. Thanks, Sebastian. And then lastly, Alejandro, any last pieces of advice that you want to offer our prospective applicants?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I definitely echo everything that's been mentioned by my peers here. I would emphasize the very hard thing to do, which is to say what you believe is true in your application. And what I mean by this is that, everyone is going to be applying to, presumably a number of programs, and everyone is going to have, particular reasons, you may mold particular sort of aspects of your experience, of your perspectives, in order to sort of, right, like make that connection be fitting with the program, with the faculty advisors, and with the culture and so forth. And sometimes you can get lost in the sauce doing so, and you may end up realizing that you're changing your approaches for your research too much, or you're changing just your whole sort of persona, or the person that you sort of like want to grow into being in the application. And I say that just from personal experience. I've had a number of times where I've applied and thinking that by molding yourself into something that someone is going to be like, oh, okay, great, this is the perfect fit. I realized, and thankfully, I think in good time, that putting forth an application that doesn't necessarily reflect the important and crucial aspects of who you are might, I'm not saying it guarantees, but it might make, what if you get accepted and then you go in and then you have to sort of like uphold this sort of profile, right? Research wise and so forth. And so it might come out to be a not so fun time. And so I would emphasize the notion of authenticity, putting forward the version of yourself that you believe is one that you see yourself being and growing into in the future. And I think it also resonates across the line. People are able to recognize that authenticity. And I just say that more so as a long-term advice, so that once you get accepted into the wonderful programs that you're going to get accepted to, you don't have to be pretending being someone that you're not. So that would be my 2 cents.
Amazing. And I just want to echo all the kudos that you all are saying. And I just want to give a huge thank you to our 3 student panelists. Thank you all so much for sharing your insights. And again, I'm going to keep saying it. We're so lucky to have you here in the psychology PhD program here at UC Berkeley. I'm going to now pass the mic off to my co-graduate student services advisor, Fonda, who is going to talk about the application requirements.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for putting your great questions in the Q&A. I want to remind you all that if we aren't able to answer your question during this session, we'll put email addresses in chat. Go ahead and send those questions by email after the session today for the best chance of getting your questions answered to submit your applications on time. So this is just a brief overview of the application requirements. In chat, we'll also put the links to the websites that have this information in detail. So the first one is the essays, which you heard about throughout this session. There is the statement of purpose, which is your area of interest in psychology, including past research and future research interests. You could also include your relevant coursework or reading that helped to generate your interests. More details are on the link we're providing in chat. There's also the personal history statement, which is where you would describe your personal background and which informed your decision to pursue your graduate degree and any experiences that show your promise, initiative, and ability to persevere despite any obstacles. And then also, use your opportunity to display your communication skills and discuss your ability to maximize effective collaboration with a diverse cross-section of the academic community. There are 3 letters of recommendation required. A 4th is acceptable, and at least 2 should be from professors and or research supervisors. Of course, your academic transcripts. There's also the evidence of English language proficiency, which would either be the test of English as a foreign language, TOEFL, or the International English Language Testing System. The GRE is not required for the fall 2025 admissions cycle. And then there are also department-specific application requirements, which are outlined on the website. These would include, the department-specific courses, and then also research experience. We'll go over the application fee waiver information, but the application fee or the fee waiver is required for application submission. And we also highly recommend completing the demographics and also family educational background sections. That way we can really fully represent the diversity of our psychology students and applicants. The deadline to submit the application is on November 15th, 2024 at 8:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we really strongly encourage that you give yourself an earlier deadline, get those questions in, and then submit your application as soon as possible, as late submissions will not be accepted. And then in terms of getting, questions answered as you navigate the application process, please note that most of the offices you're emailing will have at least 48 business hours response time. So if you send in your questions on a Friday, for example, it would take at least 2 business days after that to receive a response. So build that into your application timeline. And for the application fee, the graduate division has a full application fee waiver section to share what the documentation required is and how to submit that through the application. It is available for current U.S. citizen or current permanent residents only. Students would demonstrate either financial need or participation in certain programs that qualify for a waiver. And that list of programs is available on the Graduate Division website. Undocumented students, either AB 540 and non-AB 540, may be considered for an application fee waiver if they also demonstrate financial need.
Thank you so much, Fonda, for going through all of the application requirements and a little bit about the application fee waiver. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the graduate student resources. Feel free to screenshot this slide if you would like to, because there are so many resources that are available for all graduate students on UC Berkeley's campus. And we want to emphasize that with these services, they are available to everyone. So utilize them once you are on campus and, let your needs be met through resources for student parents. We have our Student Technology Equity Program, which helps with giving technology hardware for those that need it. We have an amazing organization called D-Lab, which helps with research development. A lot of our psychology students utilize D-Lab to help with data acquisition and other needs related to research. We also have our Graduate Wellness Center, that is a graduate-focused wellness and mental health service that we have here at UC Berkeley. And then we also have the Basic Needs Center, which offers a food pantry, signing up for something called CalFresh, emergency housing loans, and also resources for international students. And this is my favorite resource because I also commute from over 30 minutes away. Although I'm not a student, it's okay. If I was, this would be great. Free transportation around campus through the Easy Pass. And all of these resources are linked in the chat by Adolfo, who has it all there for you. I know we have 1 minute left, and so I'm leaving you all with these amazing contacts. Psych Grad Admissions, that is the email that you will go ahead and email any questions that you had that we were not able to get to today. And before you all log off, we would really appreciate if you could answer this survey to give us an idea of how we did with this event. I again appreciate you all, everyone that came and spoke, every one of you that asked questions, any folks that were answering questions in the Q&A. We really, really appreciate it. And as you all are answering the survey, feel free to, if you want to stick around for a little bit, I have the capacity to stick around to answer any questions, but thank you again. And best of luck, everyone, if you're applying this application cycle.